So today we are going to look at the Battle of Ascalon, which is the final battle of the First Crusade. And yeah, overall I have to say I've really enjoyed this series. And I'll say though, like I'm kind of amazed by the Crusaders because there are certain points I want to be like, yes, we did it, we gained Jerusalem, and then they just like kind of ruin the moment with like what we see afterwards of sieges between the cannibalism, the murder. It's just like it kind of brings down the mood, you know, of any great victory. But oh well. Let's get to this video.
The last battle of the First Crusade. On July 17th, as bodies still littered the streets, the Crusader Council convened and discussed urgent matters, such as how to dispose of all the corpses, where to house the soldiers and pilgrims, as well as how to prepare for the expected Egyptian retaliation. But the biggest agenda in the meeting was who to elect as the city's ruler. From the very start, this was what Raymond of Toulouse wanted more than anything else. But his lackluster performance in the siege, as well as his previous failed attempts, fake relics, and old age, put him in a bad position.
Man, Raymond's still getting plenty of L's this series, man. Just like, everything this guy's trying to do just completely backfires. I kind of feel bad for him. I imagine Godfrey might be a candidate, right? Like, everyone has flocked to him. His siege machine was the first one to get Crusaders on the wall. I feel like it would make sense for them to give it to Godfrey, right? Or at least for him to be the more popular candidate.
Godfrey of Bouillon had a much better claim, but the clergy continued to resist the idea that a layman could rule the city of God. Raymond of Aguilera recounts, "About this time a public assembly was held, for the leaders of the army were quarrelling with each other. There was dissatisfaction because Tancred had occupied Bethlehem and had placed his standard over the Church of the Nativity. An effort was also made to elect one of the princes king to have custody of the city. The bishops and clergy replied, 'You ought not to choose a king where the Lord suffered and was crowned.' But with the last patriarch, Simon, only recently deceased, they had no candidate of their own. 5 days later, a compromise was reached. Godfrey was chosen as the city's ruler, but styled as Advocatus Sancti Sepulchri, or Advocate of the Holy Sepulchre, a title meant to distinguish him more as a protector subordinate to the church. Raymond was furious, and even refused to vacate the Tower of David, which lost him the little respect the rest of the Crusaders.
He keeps doing this, like with Antioch. Man. Just a lot of L's for Raymond, honestly. And yeah, that made sense that Godfrey would be the guy. He seems to be basically the leader and the more, like, supported, so yeah.
Crusaders had for him. Even his own followers began leaving him in droves and started making plans for their journey home. To ease the tension a little, Raymond gave the tower to his trusted ally Peter of Narbonne, the recently elevated Bishop of Albarra, who then quickly solved the dispute by betraying Raymond and opening the citadel to Godfrey. Raymond's
oh man, all the L's he's taking, bro. It's kind of sad.
dreams had been crushed, so he left the city and made camp in Jericho. While he was away, the new Patriarch of Jerusalem was elected. Exactly a year after the death of Bishop Adhemar, on August 1st, 1099, a Norman crusader by the name of Arnulf took his place. This was an open attack against the rights of Byzantium, which had kept a Greek patriarch in the city for a long time. The new patriarch left the Orthodox Christians alone, but violently persecuted Armenians, Copts, Nestorians, and Jacobites, who were prohibited from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. To strengthen his position, Arnulf then started a cult around a new holy relic, a battered silver and golden crucifix believed to contain a piece of the true cross. According to one source, the Patriarch tortured locals to discover its location. When we examine how fragile the cohesion of this expedition was in its later stages, it is easy to underestimate them at every turn, which is exactly what most of their opponents did, including the Fatimids. But Vizier Al-Afdal was not going to let this stand. Ever since 1094, he was the de facto ruler in Egypt, so he needed to maintain his legitimacy by dealing with the newcomers. Even before the city fell, a powerful force was assembled, and now it entered Palestine. History was now repeating itself, but this time the Franks decided to avoid the near disaster of Antioch and rode out to meet the incoming threat head-on.
Yeah, not a bad idea there. Like, between the siege of Antioch and what a nightmare that was, honestly, I'd rather just fight in open battlefields than be trapped in a siege. Sieges are awful.
Originally, the Crusader force had more numbers than some countries, but now, out of the 150,000 people, if we count the People's Crusade, just over 10% remained. It was Tancred who managed to capture a few of the Fatimid scouts while patrolling the coastline, who discovered that a large army was only days away. Raymond and Robert of Normandy, however, refused the call to arms, requesting more proof of the existence of said army. And so, with a combination of bravado and hubris, Godfrey marched out on August 9th with his forces supported only by Robert of Flanders. The soldiers left barefoot, accompanied by the Patriarch and the holy relic of the True Cross, in what must have looked like a pitiful sight. The next day, under the pressure of their men, both Raymond and Robert joined Godfrey and assembled with the rest at Ramleh. Meanwhile, Jerusalem was left ungarrisoned, with only Peter the Hermit and the clergy saying prayers.
I love how Peter the Hermit has just been here the entire time. I don't remember. I can remember with like extra history after the People's Crusade, he just stopped being mentioned. But this dude never left. He just keeps popping up after the People's Crusade. That nightmare he started. He's just still hanging out. I don't know. That's so funny to me.
Hoping for a Christian victory. This all-out strategy once again meant that if they were to lose this battle, the city was guaranteed to fall, making the entire journey pointless.
Yeah, the Crusaders are gambling a lot, with their strategies of just going all in, but it has been working out for them, but they are still gambling pretty heavily.
With all the leaders together again, the morale of the army was lifted, and on the 11th of August, 1,200 knights and 9,000 footmen made their way towards Ascalon. Late in the day, they captured another group of Egyptian spies, who revealed the size of the Fatimid army. 20,000 Muslims, with a core of heavy cavalry, incorporating Bedouins, Berbers, and fearsome Ethiopians, wielding giant flails, able to kill a man and his horse in a single blow, were camped just outside of Ascalon, and were
okay, so they have the numerical superiority.
Going to push for the city the very next day. Godfrey realized he was outnumbered, so
is he gonna do a night attack? Okay, that would be a way to negate the numbers, because an open pitch battle obviously wouldn't favor the Crusaders, at least in terms of numerical superiority, but I guess whatever, I'm getting the impression, is he trying to go to a night attack, or just like already position himself so when morning comes he can still get his enemies unawares?
Relied on the element of surprise. After a short, nearly sleepless night a few miles north of the port, the Crusaders moved south before dawn on the 12th of August, with Raymond on the right, Godfrey on the left, and the two Roberts and Tancred in the centre. The camp was not too difficult to locate on account of the massive herds of oxen, sheep, goats, and camels, and once in sight, the Crusaders made their move. The three groups charged at a moderate pace, catching the Muslims completely by surprise. Al-Afdal prioritized mobility and failed to set up a perimeter or send out scouts, so most of his troops were still sleeping in their tents. Robert of Normandy headed directly towards the camp, capturing the vizier's personal coat of arms and most of his possessions. Galloping alongside the coastline, Raymond pushed many Fatimids into the sea, drowning them, while others rushed towards Ascalon, only to be crushed to death in the choke point formed at the gates. That initial shock totally broke the Egyptians.
Dude, Godfrey, good on him. Like, with Bohemond gone, who was like basically the best of the generals of these guys, it seems like Godfrey has really stepped up, and that was smart. successful night attacks.
And what could have been an epic battle was nothing more than a rout. One eyewitness recalled, "In their great fright, the Fatimids climbed and hid in trees, only to plunge from boughs like falling birds when our men pierced them with arrows and killed them with lances. Later, the Christians uselessly decapitated them with swords. Other infidels threw themselves to the ground, groveling in tenor at the Christians' feet. Then our men cut them to pieces as one slaughters cattle for the meat market." Al-Afdal managed to escape into Ascalon and then sail back to Egypt, disappointed in how easy it was for the Crusaders to destroy his army. Not only that, but they captured a wide array of treasures from his camp. Reportedly, those featured gold, silver, long cloaks, other clothing, and 12 kinds of precious stones, helmets decorated with gold, the finest rings, wonderful swords, grain, flour, and much else. His sword alone was later sold for 60 gold pieces. The bounty was so vast that the army couldn't carry all of it, resorting to burning what was left behind. As for Ascalon, the port city refused to surrender to anyone but Remor, the only prince known to have kept his promise of safe passage during the sack of Jerusalem. Godfrey was insulted and didn't intend to give his rival such a crucial exclave that close to Jerusalem.
Oh man. So far, Raymond has had the worst luck in this crusade. Can I just say, like, all his plans and dreams have been dashed. So it's like, I'm almost like wondering what Godfrey's gonna do.
So the Franks simply left. The strange combination of great martial success, followed by idiotic bickering, was still present. Because of this decision, the powerful Fatimid navy could maintain this foothold for more than half a century, and Al-Afdal would use Ascalon as a staging ground from where he would launch annual attacks. Regardless, the mission was complete, and the few survivors were some of the luckiest and toughest people in history, with an adventurous and miraculous story so colourful that it could rival that of Alexander. As summer passed, many of them were ready to tell that story back home, and in September of 1099, Robert of Normandy and Robert of Flanders, along with the majority of the Crusaders, sailed away. Remor lingered, and Godfrey was left with just 300 knights to hold Jerusalem. News of Jerusalem spread, but Pope Urban II died in Rome on the 29th of July, just 2 weeks before the news of his success could reach him. For the mighty warriors who returned, their treasures were almost entirely spent by the time they returned home. They were exhausted, sick, and broke, but revered as heroes by anyone who crossed them.
Yeah, it seems like things are finally wrapping up, huh? But that whole Ascalon thing, like, I'm telling you, like, the constant bickering between these guys, is insane, and ultimately not taking Ascalon just out of petty grudges and whatnot. Yeah, probably not a good thing in terms of, like, you know, logistics and stuff. But sucks, but at least these guys are coming back as heroes, even if they are broke now. At least they accomplished their goal of Jerusalem, which can be said more for this crusade than any other. You know, they actually got to Jerusalem and won it, so good on them.
Robert of Flanders, now known as the Jerusalemite, returned to find his homeland in a desperate state. While he was away, Emperor Henry IV had attempted to seize it. He then pushed him back twice. Another war was waged against Normandy, which he also won, and then in 1111, Robert fell from his horse in battle. The Crusader was trampled to death, but his reputation as a pious and victorious servant of Christ inspired many future Crusaders. A man who met—
That's a shame. That's a shame that Robert went out like that, considering he's a pretty cool dude, you know. Yeah.
The Byzantine Emperor fought the Sultan of Rome, Vizier of the Fatimids, rescued Jerusalem, defeated the Holy Roman Emperor and English King. It is no wonder that Flanders, which was one of the most highly populated regions in Europe, went on to become one of the biggest contributors to the Crusades. Either by land or sea, recruits from this region were present in nearly every crusade that would follow. As for Robert of Normandy, his fate was considerably worse. To leave for the crusade, he temporarily sold Normandy's rights to his brother. To buy it back, he had to resort to marrying a young bride, but by this point, his brother Henri had taken the crown of England for himself, sparking a war. Robert landed in England and started an invasion, which was terribly planned. Lacking popular support, he was defeated and captured in 1106. He would spend the next 28 years being moved from one prison to another, including the Tower of London, until his death in 1134. In his cell, he reminisced how he regretted refusing the crown of Jerusalem, not out of reverence, but out of fear of the work involved. Many historians tend to gloss over these events, but the reality is that Robert had the claim and the supporters needed to take the English throne. In fact, he and Geoffrey Plantagenet are the only dukes of Normandy who didn't become English kings, and had he done so, the history of England, France, and the Crusades would be entirely different. Then there was Gaston of Bearn, the mastermind behind the siege weapons at Jerusalem.
Okay, so that's already two. The two Roberts didn't get the most glorious, and it's kind of a little bit sad that he just went out. So this feels like an epilogue now. What happened to everybody? You know, so far not happy endings for those two.
He went on to assist the Reconquista in fighting the Moors. Other warriors gave up combat for good and devoted themselves to becoming monks or priests in monasteries they founded. A man named Gulfer of Lestor, who was the first man on the walls of Maret, is said to have come back with a pet lion. Peter the Hermit also made it home, with a piece of the Holy Sepulchre, and John the Baptist. He founded a religious cult in France, which started a trend where pilgrims would make their journey to Jerusalem, enter the Holy Church, and open a flask to capture its essence, a souvenir to bring back home.
Yeah, that sounds about right for Peter, to still kind of be motivating people religiously. I still can't believe Peter just was there the whole time. After the People's Crusade, he just like stuck around and seems to have his little happy ending. That's so wild to me. He just never left.
Other examples of such tourism included palm leaves, single strands of hair from Christ's beard, a whole ball of the Virgin Mary's hair, pieces of the True Cross, and numerous holy lances. This would set the trend, and modern archaeologists have found thousands of these flasks meant to contain holy water or oil called ampullae. They would be worn around the necks of those who wanted a piece of divinity and something they could show off back home. The reverence and stories that came out of the First Crusade spawned the Christian version of the Hajj. There were also those who deserted the Crusade, and now that it was seemingly over, they faced the scorn of Latin society. Among them were Hugh of Vermandois and Stephen of Blois, who fled from Antioch and were now under the threat of excommunication. The overwhelming public shame was so powerful that it prompted a new third wave of Latin armies in the Holy Land, joined by numerous enthusiastic Franks who wanted either absolution, fame, or an artifact. However, this time the Crusade was proclaimed by Pope Pascal II and featured numerous Germans and Italians. This campaign is known as the Crusade of 1101, or the Crusade of the Faint-Hearted, highlighting two problems you must have already thought of. Wasn't the First Crusade over? And why wasn't it named the Second Crusade?
Yeah, you think it would be over, but no. No, we still have like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 more episodes to go, so, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what the heck this Crusade's about, and what's gonna happen afterwards. So I'll see you guys tomorrow when we get to this Crusade.